Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to this session on Python Lambda function, or you can call it anonymous functions or Lambda expression. Different people call it in different way, depends on their comfort level. So before we dive into understanding how we can use Lambda functions or define Lambda functions in Python, let's try to understand how you define a normal function in Python. So as we have seen in previous video, we use the def keyword to define a function in Python, followed by the function name and the arguments that you are passing to that function. So here I'm defining a very simple function which simply takes a number and returns the square of that number. Once I execute this cell block, the function is defined. Now to use this function, we have to call it by using the function name and passing the proper arguments. If I execute this cell block, I'm getting the output as 64, which is the square of number 8. Now let's see how we can implement the same functionality using lambda function. To define lambda function in Python, you have to use the keyword lambda followed by the bounding variable to your lambda function, which is x for now. You're free to use any letter or any word you want here. Then I will use the colon symbol, and after colon symbol I have my lambda function body. Now as I said, here we just want to perform the square of a particular number, so I'm writing x to the power 2. Once I execute this, of course nothing has been written in the output because we are yet to pass an argument to a lambda function. Here it's just showing that our lambda function is defined. Now to pass argument to your lambda function, what you have to do is put your lambda function within the normal parentheses, and then you can pass your argument again within normal parentheses. Here I'm passing, or I want to calculate the square of a number 2. If I execute this, I'm getting the 4 as output. Now because lambda function is an expression, it can be named. So I want to name this lambda expression as square underscore this. And when I want to call this square underscore this, I can simply pass the argument within normal parentheses. If I execute this cell block, you are again getting the output as 4. Next, the question is, can we pass 2 arguments to a lambda function? So the answer is yes, you can pass 2 arguments to your lambda function. The only thing you have to do is separate the arguments by this comma separator. And what I'm doing in this lambda function is I'm just concatenating the first name and last name by using a space character, and I'm naming this lambda expression as full name. In next line, I'm passing the first name and last name to my full name lambda expression, and in the output I'm getting the full name as Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python. Okay, next question is, can we use if and else statement within lambda function? So the answer is yes, you can use it, but it has a weird syntax and it creates more confusion. If you use nested if else, it doesn't work out. So only single level of if and else statement you can use in lambda. What I'm doing here is defining my lambda function, and the weird thing is you have to write the output first for your first condition. So my first condition is if x is less than 0, my output will be print negative, and then I'm saying else print positive. To test this lambda function, I'm passing a negative argument, which is -3 to this function, and when I execute this, I'm getting negative in the output. If I pass a positive value to this, my output will change to positive. So this is how you can implement if and else functionality within lambda function. Next, I want to show you a very simple example and the implementation of lambda function. Let's say we define a list team India, and here we want to sort this list on the basis of last letter of each and every element of this list. So if I want to do it first in the normal way, I will define a user defined function here, last letter, which is simply accepting the word as argument and returning the last letter of that particular word. Now after that, I'm using the sorted function. To know more about sorted functions, you can of course go to my previous videos in which I'm explaining sorted function in more detail. For now, what sorted function does, it accepts a list as argument, and then it uses the key keyword, which actually defines the criteria that how you want to sort your team India list. Now here in my key, I'm using my last letter function. So here the criteria for sorting the list is the last letter of your each and every element. If I define my team India and execute this cell block, this is how my sorted list looks like. So of course K is the last letter for Hardik, R is for XR, and for Virat it is T. So that's how your list elements are sorted. Now if I want to implement the same thing using my lambda function, what I have to do is use the sorted function again, pass my list, and for my key I'm using lambda function here. So here this is very simple. You're saving some lines, plus lambda functions are much faster in comparison to normal function. Now I observed sometimes it works faster, but sometimes it works slow also. When it works faster, when you have a huge amount of data, Lambda function has some kind of advantage over the normal function. If I execute this, I'm getting the same output, but now you can see how we can implement the same functionality in two different ways. First, by using the normal user-defined function in Python, and in second way using Lambda function. Now Lambda function is also very controversial because some people says that it has issues with readability, as we have seen using if-else, or if someone is a Python beginner and we show this syntax to that person, he won't be able to understand. So as you know, in general ways, people says that Lambda functions had issues with readability. Also, heavy syntax for your function doesn't go well with the Lambda keyword, and Lambda functions sometimes for beginners or intermediate users are not easy to understand. Also, some people says that use of Lambda function is not Pythonic as per the PAPET standards. Now I'll leave it to you whether Python Lambda functions are Pythonic or not, because I found it very useful sometimes when I'm doing some data analysis work and I want to perform some very quick operations on my data frame in pandas. Lambda functions are very handy there. So that's all for today's session, guys. Thanks for watching. Happy learning and stay safe.